A case of money, gold, bimetallic standard, and currency manipulation. Similar to humans, money has undergone an extensive evolutionary journey. It has transitioned through various phases, including the barter system, metal currencies, the gold standard, paper money, and potentially cryptocurrencies in the future. However, the intrinsic value of most of these forms is limited. They possess value mainly in terms of their exchangeability. Money functions as a universally accepted medium of exchange with agreed-upon value. Much has been discussed about gold standard and fiat, but do you know that before the gold standard, the United States was using a system called bimetallic standard? Please subscribe to our channel to discover more about how economics, finance, and money make the world go round. The stretch from the 1870s to the onset of World War I in 1914 is commonly referred to as the classical gold standard period due to its prevalence among most countries for trade. The gold standard entails a monetary framework in which a currency's value is directly tied to a fixed amount of gold. While the United Kingdom adopted a de facto gold standard in 1717, it wasn't until after the Napoleonic Wars that it formalized its currency's convertibility to gold. On the other spectrum, the United States utilized a bimetallic standard, where both gold and silver coins held equal legal tender status, supported by a fixed gold-silver ratio known as the mint ratio. The U.S. officially transitioned to the gold standard in 1873 through the Coinage Act of 1873, following the American Civil War. This marked the beginning of the classical gold standard period, when the price of gold was set at $20.67 per ounce, a value that numerous nations, including the U.S., adhered to in the 1870s. The 19th century was marked by vigorous debates among scholars regarding the question of bimetallism or monometallism. Advocates of bimetallism argued that it results in an expanded money supply due to its combination of two metals, thereby fostering increased price stability. They also contended that it simplifies the determination of exchange rates through the use of the mint ratio. Conversely, critics of bimetallism believed it was inherently unstable, as it led to a freezing of the mint ratio even in situations where supply and demand conditions were inconsistent. This phenomenon relates to the well-known monetary principle known as Gresham's law, which asserts that bad money drives out good money. Essentially, if coins with differing metal values hold equal legal tender status, coins made from the cheaper metal will be used for transactions, while those made from the more valuable metal will be hoarded and gradually exit circulation. Given that silver is less valuable than gold, yet both are considered legal tender, Gresham's law played a role in this scenario. Consequently, opponents argued that monometallism was an inevitable outcome. In 1992, the renowned economist Milton Friedman contended that the decision to abandon the bimetallic standard in 1873 resulted in greater price instability than would have occurred otherwise, leading to enduring negative consequences for the U.S. economy. His analysis led him to conclude that the actions taken in 1873 were a regrettable misstep with severe repercussions. The world as we know it today might be a different place if the U.S. did not adopt the gold standard. Following the adoption of the gold standard, the period from the 1870s to 1914 witnessed notable economic growth and stability, as illustrated in the above figure. This era coincided with the Second Industrial Revolution, often referred to as the Technological Revolution, and stands as the most renowned monetary system in history. However, the standard's tenure was short-lived, as with the onset of World War I, most nations suspended the free convertibility of gold. The United States, differing in approach, simply embargoed gold imports. This change led to considerable volatility in newly free-floating exchange rates. Seeking stability, many countries reinstated the gold standard by 1927, with a shared aim of reverting to the pre-war arrangement. Unfortunately, this objective proved unattainable, and by 1933 the gold standard ceased due to bank runs, central bank collapses, and the loss of confidence in the British pound. Post-World War II, a momentous agreement shaped global financial history, the Bretton Woods Agreement. In this pact, 44 nations collaboratively fixed the value of 1 ounce of gold at $35, while all other currencies were pegged to the US dollar. This system operated effectively until 1971, when it concluded due to a series of economic measures known as the Nixon shock. Consequently, the era spanning from World War II to the Nixon shock has been labeled the Golden Age of Capitalism. In 1971, President Nixon devalued the dollar concerning gold, driven by concerns over the gold supply's adequacy to back circulating dollars. These actions were also intended to address the soaring inflation and unemployment rates of the 1970s. Ultimately, these circumstances prompted major economies to shift to free-floating currencies by 1973. Exchange rates and trade impact. An exchange rate, also known as a forex rate, signifies the value at which one currency can be exchanged for another. For instance, as of May 2021, you could exchange approximately 73 Indian rupees for $1 US. In today's financial landscape, most currencies are classified as fiat currencies, signifying that the paper money we use derives its value solely from government recognition and lacks intrinsic value akin to tangible assets such as gold. Although the concept of fiat notes was originally employed in China in the 11th century, their global acceptance expanded notably after the abandonment of the gold standard in 1971. During the interval spanning from 1968 to 1973, coinciding with the decline of the Bretton Woods system, numerous world currencies embarked on a path of free floating. These currencies are referred to as free-floating currencies. Under this exchange rate mechanism, a nation's currency value is determined by market dynamics, specifically the relative supply and demand for other currencies within the foreign exchange market, often abbreviated as Forex. This stands in contrast to the fixed exchange rate system, in which a country's central bank maintains its currency's price within a specific range through continuous buying and selling. Fixed rates are generally adopted to ensure exchange rate stability, as floating rates can undergo significant fluctuations on a daily basis. However, maintaining a fixed exchange rate system can prove costly, requiring central banks to employ open market operations. Additionally, the Mundell-Fleming model outlines how fixed exchange rate regimes limit a country's central bank in using domestic monetary strategies to achieve broader macroeconomic goals. Although a few nations, such as the United Arab Emirates, Denmark, and Hong Kong, choose to peg their currencies to the US dollar, the fixed exchange rate system is not widely adopted. Some currencies, like the Chinese yuan and Singapore dollar, employ a loosely fixed mechanism, attaching their values to a specific range of trading percentages. Long-term exchange rates serve as a key indicator of an economy's growth and overall health, in conjunction with widely recognized macroeconomic metrics like inflation and interest rates. This significance arises from the substantial impact that fluctuations in exchange rate have on trade dynamics, exerting a direct influence on a nation's economic condition. As a result, exchange rates stand out as one of the most extensively analyzed and government-regulated economic benchmarks. The purchasing power parity theory, a guiding principle, asserts that exchange rates are determined by comparing the purchasing power of the two involved currencies. Shifting away from the intricacies, let's delve into an illustrative scenario. Imagine you're in the United States today seeking to purchase an iPad Air priced at about $600 US. Given the current exchange rate of 73 Indian rupees to a dollar, you would need to pay around 44,000 Indian rupees. A currency's appreciation occurs when its value strengthens relative to another currency, enhancing your purchasing power. Now envision a situation where the dollar appreciates further, causing the exchange rate to become 80 rupees to the dollar. In this case, acquiring the same iPhone would require 48,000 rupees, a larger amount of rupees due to the heightened strength of the dollar. This principle extends to imports and exports as well. In the scenario outlined above, an appreciating dollar leads to increased costs for importing U.S. goods into India, similar to the heightened cost of the iPad Air. Simultaneously, Indian exports to the U.S. become more competitively priced in the American market due to currency dynamics, thus influencing trade patterns in a corresponding fashion. Currency manipulation, understanding motives and methods. Currency manipulation refers to a strategic monetary policy maneuver in which a country's central bank engages in the buying or selling of foreign currency, strategically adjusting the value of its domestic currency to gain an advantageous position in international trade. The designation of a currency manipulator is assigned by the U.S. Department of the Treasury to countries suspected of manipulating exchange rates, often involving deliberate currency depreciation and engaging in perceived unfair trade practices. The consequences of currency devaluation practices can reverberate globally, as witnessed in incidents like Mexico in 1994 or more recently, China in 2015. This prompts the question, why would a nation intentionally weaken its own currency, a move seemingly detrimental to its purchasing power? The concise answer, exports. As earlier elucidated, exchange rates wield immense influence over foreign trade, an essential driver of economic growth. By strategically devaluing its currency relative to another nation's currency, a country can render its exports more competitively priced for the target market. Simultaneously, the cost of importing goods becomes inflated, creating a form of protectionism. This approach is often favored by countries with robust export sectors. The benefits are manifold: enhanced competitiveness, heightened aggregate demand, diminished unemployment, and accelerated GDP growth. Additionally, currency devaluation can serve to improve a country's current account situation or assist in servicing outstanding sovereign debt obligations. However, the adage "too good to be true" holds relevance. Currency devaluation strategies can inadvertently harm the nation initiating them. As imports become pricier, the cost of foreign equipment escalates, potentially undermining overall national productivity. The depreciation of a currency leads to its increased supply in the foreign market. In response, the central bank of the affected country may intensify its own currency's supply, potentially sparking a tit-for-tat currency war. Such actions risk igniting substantial inflation within the involved nations or triggering recession due to heightened global market uncertainty. An example is Brazil, where despite the devaluation of the Brazilian real, the nation witnessed sluggish economic growth. Instances of currency manipulation accusations are often observed in political discourse, notably during the presidency of Donald Trump. China faced such scrutiny due to 3 consecutive devaluations of the yuan in 2015, the most significant drop in 2 decades, which had far-reaching economic implications. This incident led to China being labeled a currency manipulator in 2019. Yuan's depreciation between 2015 and 2019 impacted the Indian rupee, which reached its lowest value in 2 years. Notably, this depreciation did not benefit Indian exporters substantially, given the competitive rivalry between India and China across various export-oriented industries, including chemicals and textiles. Currency manipulation, COVID-19, and watch list. In December of the preceding year, the U.S. Treasury Department included India in its roster of countries on the currency manipulator watch list. This action occurred concurrently with the release of the semi-annual report, which scrutinizes the macroeconomic and foreign exchange policies of principal trading partners. Notably, India shares this watch list with 10 other nations, including China, Japan, and Singapore. It's crucial to distinguish this status from being designated an outright currency manipulator. The United States employs 3 discernment criteria to differentiate between the 2 classifications. Number 1. The nation sustains a trade surplus with the U.S. exceeding $20 billion. Number 2. The country maintains a current account surplus surpassing 3% of its GDP. And number 3. The nation engages in net acquisitions of foreign currency exceeding 2% of its GDP over a 1-year interval. A nation earns its place on the currency manipulator watch list when it contravenes at least 2 of these benchmarks. When a nation violates all 3 criteria, it is officially declared a currency manipulator. In the case of India's inclusion on the watch list, it pertains to its infringement of the first and third benchmarks during the year 2020. As reported by the U.S. Treasury Department, India, along with Singapore, executed foreign market interventions in an asymmetric and sustained manner, resulting in the depreciation of their currencies. This occurrence is not novel. India occupied the watch list in 2018 but was removed in 2019. The onset of the coronavirus pandemic engendered a demand slump and the imposition of strict national lockdowns, resulting in curtailed imports surpassing exports. This culminated in India recording a trade surplus of $790 million in June of the prior year, the first instance of such in 18 years. The cumulative trade surplus amounted to $22 billion across 4 quarters through June 2020, thereby contravening the first benchmark. During the period spanning April to August 2020, foreign direct investment inflows surged by a staggering $35.7 billion, marking a notable 13% escalation in comparison with the corresponding time frame the previous year. This accomplishment is particularly significant in light of the contraction in fund inflows in most major economies, excluding China. The Reserve Bank of India's decision to set the reversed repo rate at a historic low of 3.35% in May 2020, coupled with the pandemic-induced undervaluation of companies, facilitated this influx of funds into India. Consequently, heightened demand for the Indian rupee ensued, leading to its appreciation. Responding to this development, the Reserve Bank of India embarked on aggressive acquisition of U.S. dollars, a strategic move aimed at devaluating the rupee to preserve the competitiveness of Indian exports abroad. This activity contravened the third benchmark. Net acquisitions of foreign currency surged to 2.4% of GDP, exceeding the permissible limit of 2%. This overage was attributed to the RBI's escalated purchases of foreign currency during the mid-2020 period. A closer examination of how such foreign currency acquisitions influence exchange rates reveals that in the context of currencies with floating exchange rates, market dynamics hinge on the interplay between currency supply and demand. The RBI's procurement of U.S. dollars augments the Indian rupee supply, from S1 to S2 as depicted graphically. This triggers an appreciation of the U.S. dollar and a corresponding depreciation of the Indian rupee. This dynamic conforms to the reciprocal relationship between the two currencies. Consequently, as the rupee experiences depreciation, Indian exports become more attractively priced in foreign markets, thereby aligning with the notion of currency manipulation. Impact and conclusion. Regarding the potential impact of a country's inclusion on the currency manipulator list, there exists a possibility of exacerbating bilateral relations between the involved nations with the United States. In the direst scenario, this situation might even escalate into trade wars, mirroring the 2019 trade tensions between the United States and China. While placement on the monitoring list generally does not entail tariffs or penalties, it could affect the global perception and reputation of the concerned country. The notion that the term currency manipulation is hypocritical has been brought forward as it appears inconsistent due to the United States already enjoying the advantage of possessing the world's primary reserve currency, a necessity for global trade. Instances of significant interventions by the Federal Reserve, like quantitative easing and involvement in the repo market following the 2008 financial crisis, have been pointed out as potential instances where the U.S. could be seen as participating in currency manipulation itself. Who do you think is right? Give us your comment, and thank you for staying with us.